Welcome to the Sens Spotlight podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is the official partner of the Ottawa Senators. And before we get started, please like and subscribe to the show. Follow us everywhere. It really helps us out. And what a win last night. The Senators absolutely demolished the Washington Capitals 7-1. So I think this will be a really fun show for Sens fans, and I can't wait to discuss it with Pierre. So hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Sens Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson bursts the speed, gets a shot, and we score! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are joined by Pierre McGuire. What a win. Oh my God. That was that was Ottawa's best game of the season by far. So just what were your thoughts about what happened last night?
It was a Saturday night setup for the Ottawa Senators. They were, sleeping it off on Friday night in Washington while the Washington Capitals were winning 5-1 in Columbus. And then Washington got jumped pretty good by a really good Ottawa Senator team last night. I think full value to Ottawa, one of their most complete performances, not just on the ice, coaching as well. You could see they had a plan for the game. I love the way they maneuvered their lines. They utilized different combinations. The fact they put McDermott in for a nuclear deterrent, whether it's Tommy Wilson or Dylan McElrath, smart coaching, really elite playing. Timmy Stützle was an outstanding playmaker last night. I thought Drake was fantastic. Obviously, Dylan Cozens getting the points really good. Linus didn't have to do a lot, but when he had to, he was there. I think, to me, Alex, I don't know how you feel, one of the better performances of the season, not just by the players, but by the coaches as well.
By far their best performance of the season. I think maybe you could quibble with the Tampa Bay game earlier in the year, but Tampa Bay's been sliding, so maybe it wasn't the best indicator of play. But I think, we need to give our flowers to Dylan Cozens, because on this show, I feel like he was listening to us, Pierre, and he's like, hey, I'm going to take this personally, like the Michael Jordan meme. And he was outstanding tonight. I keep thinking about that play in the first period after he had scored, where he tracked back, made a great defensive play. Then the puck got back to him. I forget who he danced around for a breakaway, got tripped and got a penalty. And that's Dylan Cozens at his best, right? Is playing the defensive side, which then leads into the offensive side. I thought he played by far the best game of the season.
There was a reason why he got the nickname the workhorse from Whitehorse, because of that play that you're just talking about. That was his MO in junior. That was his MO for Canada at the World Junior. And we've seen bits and pieces of when he was in Buffalo, and we saw a little bit of it in the playoffs last year. Not as much I think they would have liked. And to start this year, not that much. But if he can that from what happened last night and take it into the Boston game and then the Chicago game, which is a back-to-back, I think that's kind of what they want to see. Now it comes down to the consistency for Dylan. But, man, again, I can't stress enough. He was a big-time player. Nate, we talked about Drake. Drake had to be a guy that elevated without Tkachuk being there. Drake elevated big time, I thought, last night as well.
And I think you talked about it off the top, just giving Travis Green some credit. I think putting Greg and Perron are really good two-way guys that are great on the walls, that can feed the puck to Cozens. I think that's the kind of players that need to play with Cozens, Dylan, that is. And I really like that line. We'll see if it continues, but I really like the move. And I think when you talk about Drake Batherson, I think with Tkachuk out, Batherson and Stützle together makes a lot of sense. And obviously a lot of fans were maybe shrieking when they saw Nick Cozens on the first line left wing. And guess what? He scored. The coach was validated, but I thought Nick Cozens had been one of Ottawa's best players so far in the past maybe 2 or 3 games. You put him on the first line, he wins battles, he gets the puck to the best players, he knows who he is, and that line was exceptional tonight. So I think Travis Green deserves a lot of credit for how he coached this game.
I'm glad you're saying that because I thought the entire staff was great, but the roster maneuvering and the adjustments was really smart. And one thing I can tell you, a little bit like when you go play Florida Panthers, you got to be prepared for a street fight when you go to Washington, just because the way they play and the swagger and they're a big team. And so he knows Cozens has played there many times, and he's not exactly a fan favorite anywhere he goes, but in Washington in particular. And I remember doing the games when he was breaking in Philly, and they would play Washington. That's a nasty piece of business, that rivalry. Nick Cozens knew how to do it. You know, he wasn't the best player in the game, but he's a guy that you noticed throughout the games because he knew how to stir it up a little bit properly. You knew they were going to target Timmy last night, and Timmy was smart. He'd get it, move it, and then move himself. Some of his plays were outstanding. So having a guy like Cozens there takes a little bit of the spotlight away from Timmy, opens up more room, and Cozens draws more of the attention because he's just not popular there. I say that as a compliment, not as a negative. Mm-hmm. And so I really was impressed by Travis last night. Hats off to him and his staff.
And the other thing that I thought that I've seen in the last 2-3 games is their PK looks much better. Like way more aggressive.
They're not sitting back, man. Alex has been driving me nuts since the start of the year because I know I've said it to you. I watched Travis Green play. I coached when he was playing, when he was breaking. He was never a passive player because if he was, he wouldn't have played in the league. You know, Noah Baumgartner was an elite skater. He wasn't a little bit good. He was really good. He could close a gap unbelievably well. So he's involved with the penalty kill. There's no way they want those guys passive. Alfie was never a passive player. So, like, everything I was watching on that penalty kill, I remember telling him when we first started doing this, I'd be like, this is crazy. Because usually a team is a reflection of the coaches and the way they played. They were nothing like those guys. And so I'm happy to see they're much more aggressive now.
Yeah, it's almost like I think it's going to be my story today for Sportsnet, but it's like it used to be that they were stuck to the diamond as their structure, and now it's almost just part of it. Like they're not playing a diamond; it's just where they start, and then they kind of shoot off and be aggressive. And just I never want to see anyone on the half wall and just have 4 seconds to make a play. Like I don't think that ever is a winning formula on a PK. And to their credit, you know what? First 5-6 games, they were struggling and they changed things up and they're like, okay, let's have a bunch of meetings on the PK unit. Let's change things up. Remind them that they need to be much more aggressive. And they have been. And, you know, it's still a couple games, but it's looking much better.
One of the things that's really important when you play a team like Washington, and Boston has the same kind of thing with Pasternak because he kind of posts up in the same spot that Ovechkin does. You got to be aware those guys are one-time options on the left-hand side of the ice for the opposition, but on your right-hand side, it forces you to get aggressive. So you want to take away time and space from Ovechkin. You want to take away time and space from Pasternak. And if you don't do that, they're going to light you up. So I think it almost forced them as a team to say, we're going to play it this way because of X being Ovechkin last night. Coming up, it's going to be Pasternak. And if you do that, then everybody else gets aggressive too. You identify one person. I remember clear as day doing this breakdown for NBC a long time ago when we go into Washington. And the schematic was Backstrom, Carlson, Ovechkin, and Oshie in the bumper. But if you didn't take away Backstrom as an option, they were going to light you up like you can't believe because you had Carlson up high who could shoot it and he could really bring the heat. Oshie, who was a right-hand shot in the bumper, who could really rip it. And then you had Ovechkin on the backside, and Oshie knew if he got overplayed, he could just bump it on a blind backhand pass to Ovechkin, who would just tee it and rip it. And so if you didn't take away Backstrom immediately as an option, you were dead. Their power play was running like 28, 29% for many, many years because of that, because nobody adjusted to taking away Backstrom as an option. They were worried about all the other guys. The problem was the guy that had the puck was an unbelievable maestro. Like he was a power play maven. He was unbelievable, Nick Backstrom.
Oh my God, yeah. What a player. What a player. The other thing I think, not just the penalty kill, but overall, like after that Islanders game, Travis Green called his team sloppy. He said we need to get back to basics. And the last 3 games, they've given up 5 goals. And even just the eye test, like they've been way better, just way better at limiting teams to the outside. And I felt like Washington, the game last night was epitomized that, right? 13 shots. I think that's the fewest they've allowed since in over a year or so.
Wow.
And yeah, that was a pretty outstanding defensive performance. And Washington had absolutely nothing for 6 shots through 2 periods. Like that's Travis Green. Like I don't know what he says in the room, but I can't think of anything negative for him after tonight's game.
Yeah,
Or last night's
no
game.
way. I thought it was a complete team effort. It wasn't just the players. Like I said, it wasn't just Linus Ullmark who didn't have to do much. It was everybody. And just want to throw out, you were talking about bouquets before and talking about Nick Cozens and also Dylan Cozens. How about Zetterlund? He had 6 shots on goal in that game last night. Now, he's not scoring. He's playing as a depth player. But if you're playing as a depth player and you're getting 6 shots on goal, that's a positive sign. And maybe it's leading towards him breaking out. So I think you got to be fair because he hadn't played well. Last night, he had more time. He had more space. Clearly, the other team wasn't as engaged, but that's not his fault. You got to do what you got to do. And he's got to get pucks to the net. If he's not a scorer for you and not generating some semblance of off, he's not going to help you win. So I thought last night was a good step forward for him.
Yeah, no, for sure. He seemed really engaged last night, and just he hit the post early. I think it was in the second period. Like you just noticed him, right? And I feel like obviously you want him to produce, but the mere fact of him being a very noticeable guy on the fourth line of all places, that gives a little bit of confidence. And I think if this team starts to turn, like we talked about this before, and we won't be a broken record, but they have a lot of winnable games the next little bit against teams where you should have time and space at times in games. If Zetterlund gets on a roll, Batherson's looking like rearing into form. Cozens is now a point per game player. Like you can see this team building some confidence, and when you get the confidence and everyone's scoring, then it's a bit easier for maybe your depth guy like a Fabian Zetterlund to get more chances and hopefully find the back of the net.
Anytime you're putting points in the bank without Brady is a positive. And that's how I think that's almost how they have to look at every game. Just keep stockpiling points and putting them in the bank so that you have a little wiggle room without Brady. And right now they're starting to do that with consistency. I think that's really important for this group.
No, for sure. And what Linus Ullmark said last night, I really think almost typifies the mindset of this team. Is he said, hey, we scored 7 goals, but we could have won this game 2-1. We only allowed 1. Right. And I think that's the approach. Yeah. That's the mindset this team needs to have, is just grind out games. Like, sure, 7-1, awesome. Score, everyone feels good, but that's not the way this team has to play moving forward in a sense. Like, if you beat a team 7-1, great. But most nights you're not, and you have to be ready to be in the dogfight, just grind results out, get to overtime, just not lose a lot of games in regulation, just find ways to keep yourself in the mix. And they've done that, right? They were 2-4, what was it, last week at this time? Yeah. And they had the Edmonton Oilers coming to town, and now they're 4-1. Like, they're back at 500 and they're in a really good spot. So credit to the team for turning it around.
Part of what's helped them turn it around, Sanderson and Zub. Those guys have been very, like Zub last night was +4. He's +4 in that game last night. I don't know how much attention that got from too many people, but I'm just telling you, I thought he played tremendous. The setup on the Batherson deflection, that's a brilliant play. And look at Artem's a hard nut. He's a tough guy. He doesn't say much, but I'll tell you one thing. Like, he can defend hard against really good players, but he doesn't have a whole lot of offense in the artillery, if you know what I mean. Like, this is not his deal. But last night, that was an amazingly smart play by him when he puts it in almost a perfect wheelhouse position for Drake, who just chips it by Lindgren at the time, the goalie for Washington. I was really impressed by that tandem in particular for Ottawa last night.
Who has more assists, Artem Zub or Jake Sanderson?
Probably Artem.
They're tied. So it's a bit of a trick question. But anyways, I just saw that. I was like, oh, like on the score sheet, Artem Zub 5 assists, like 5th assist of the season.
That's good.
Jake Sanderson 5th assist of the season. I'm like, oh my God, they're tied. Who would have thought? But I was talking to Sanderson a couple of days ago, and he's like, yeah, Zuby's going off a little bit. Like, and offensively, he's like, yeah. I was like, good.
How's Zuby's English coming?
I've talked to Sanderson before. I've talked to Zuby a couple times. He's a really good-natured guy, really nice guy, and he tries to speak English. It's definitely better, and I mean, I wouldn't call him fully, he's not fluent in English, but he gives it a go. And I remember talking to Sanderson last year. I said, "Hey, how do you guys like communicate?" He said, like I don't really know any Russian, but I should, kind of thing." And he kind of joked about trying to learn a couple words in Russian. I don't know any Russian, so I can't make a joke off that. But yeah, so it's good to see. But that pairing has been Ottawa's best pairing, and they're so good at shutting down teams, Pierre. Like, just it's hard to score on them with them on the ice.
Mobility. Artem's really physical, but not in a crazy way. He's really strong. He's a physically powerful human. And Jake can skate, as everybody knows. So it's a really good tandem. And Artem knows when he gets into trouble, just give the puck to Jake and he'll skate it out of trouble. The more I watch Jake, and I saw him so much, and obviously I had the honor of coaching his father to 2 pretty successful years for his dad. The thing about Jake that I'm starting to see more and more of, and I don't know if you feel the same way about it, Alex, is there's a Scott Niedermayer component to Jake's game now that I didn't see when he was at Dakota. I thought the potential was there, but now he's actually living up to the potential that most of us thought he would have. And to be in the same sense with Scotty Niedermayer, that's pretty significant. But that's
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, just for people that might not know?
So Scotty Niedermayer, when he played for the Devils in particular, the team that drafted him in the first round, the thing that he did that was amazing was he could transport the puck. And back in those days, they had Scotty Stevens, they had Kenny Danico, they had Bruce Driver, but they had bigger physical guys. They didn't have puck transporters. And the red line was in play then, so you couldn't make these long stretch passes. Niedermayer could skate them out of trouble almost all the time. And as much as he was targeted, he wasn't targeted enough because the Devils really didn't spend a lot of time in their own zone because of players like Scotty Niedermayer and Brian Rafalski, 2 guys that can move, and they were both playing on the left side. So I see Jake now, and I notice every time Ottawa senses some kind of forecheck pressure, the puck goes to Jake. And Jake skates it out of trouble. And I'm watching that the last couple of games. I'm going, there's a Niedermayer component and Scotty Niedermayer's a Hall of Famer. I watched him playing in Kamloops Blazers with Daryl Sador. I'm just telling you. And you'd go in there, you'd stay at the Dome Motor Lodge on the hill in Kamloops. You'd go across the street to the rink and you'd watch practice in the morning. Tom Rennie was the coach. And then you'd go back to the hotel, you have a little brunch, a little workout or whatever, and then you go watch the game. And Niedermayer just took these things over. It was crazy how good he was. And Sadora was really good too. And he didn't miss a beat, Niedermayer. When he got in the end, he never missed a beat. It was unbelievable. And I'm like I said, I'm watching Jake and I'm going, oh man, there's something there. There's something very similar.
It's funny. Graham Nichols of the Hockey News Coming in Hot, he would joke to me last year that my BFF was Jake Sanderson, because early in the year I would watch him and I'd be in the press box and just, oh my God, what a play. Like, he's the type of player I just fall in love with, that no mistakes, super smart, great defensively. You can tell he works his butt off, just such an elegant skater. Like, it ticks all the check marks for me. And he's a really nice guy, and he works his tail off. Like, if anyone knows Jake, like the work ethic is, I think Brady Tkachuk called him boring at one of the Amazon things. It's like as an ode of like a term of endearment, like that. He's so locked into hockey. And sometimes, you're more of the eye test guy. I like the analytics a bit, but it's interesting you mentioned how good Sanderson's is at transporting the puck out, because Elliot Friedman talked about it. And I think it was on the broadcast last night. I think the Sens are third in terms of limiting opponents' ozone time possession in their own end, right? Which makes sense. If you have Jake Sanderson and you dump the puck in and he gets the puck and it's already out of the zone, it's like, guess what? You're not going to be in Ottawa's end a lot, and that's bearing out in the stats as well. So it's interesting that you picked up on that as well.
I see that. I've used a Niedermayer comparison, and if you go watch the two, and people in Ottawa, I'm not trying to beat you up on this one, go watch the 2007 Stanley Cup final when they had Pronger, Beauchemin, Sean O'Donnell, and Scotty Niedermayer in their defense. You couldn't get any forecheck going when you were in Ottawa because of those 4 guys in particular. Excuse me. But it takes me back when I'm watching Jake. again, I use a Niedermeyer comparison, but if you go watch the tapes from 2010 to 2015 of the Chicago Blackhawks, and you watch Duncan Keith, you watch Johnny Oduya, and you watch Nick Leddy, those are their three left defensemen throughout that entire sequence of time, almost 6 years. You could never forecheck Chicago for long periods of time because the right defenseman always knew when in trouble, throw the puck around to the left side, and we got three guys, one on every sequence, that can skate the puck out of trouble. We made tapes of this at NBC. Eddie Olczyk was always doing the Chicago games. I would come in and do the national game with Eddie and Doc. And Eddie would say, yeah, that's right. And you could see it. You could not forecheck Chicago on the left-hand side of the ice. So you knew Joel Quenneville was telling the guys, just reverse it to the left because nobody could contain them. Yep. And then they'd have guys like Patrick Kane stretching the zone. Now the red line's out at this time. And so now you're like, how are we going to play these guys? Patrick Sharp, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Tage. Like, go look at some of the players they had. Marian Hossa, speed, size, skill. They were just stretching you out, and they were always coming up the left-hand side of the ice. And I'm seeing that there's a little taste of that in Ottawa right now. Not saying they're there yet.
Sure.
But there's a little taste of that.
And don't forget Thomas Chabot too, right? Like he's
he is playing better. I think you would agree.
I think he's playing better. There's still moments, but I think overall he's been much better the last 2 or 3 games with Jensen as well. I thought Jensen had a pretty good game for the most part.
I think he's the only guy that was minus last night.
I know.
Poor guy. Like that's just bad. That's a bad luck deal. That's just because I thought he played well against his old team too.
But as you mentioned, like if you have Chabot, Sanderson, those guys are a one-man zone exit, right? And that's part of defending. Like that's the interesting thing in the minutia of the game is like if sometimes your best defense is offense, or at least in terms of getting the puck out of your own zone, right? Like it's
spend more time in their zone than your zone, and you'll win a lot of games.
Right.
That matters. That matters a lot. Defensive zone time, offensive zone time. It's got to be slanted towards the offensive zone time because if it's not, then you're going to be in trouble. Ask San Jose. Like, go look at the teams that are struggling. I bet you if you look at how much time they spend in their own zone versus time they spend in the opposition zone, it's probably disjointed beyond belief.
It is for sure. Did you ever think that on October 26th, 2025, we could say that Shane Pinto leads the league in goals? Did you ever think that would be the case?
No, and I'm a big Shane fan. Watched him play a ton, obviously, with the development situation then at North Dakota. I'm putting my blind down because it's getting sunny here so I can still see it.
That's okay.
No, I never did. But the one thing people that watch Shane a lot knew before he got to, he could shoot the puck. Didn't mean it was accurate, and it didn't mean it was going to be a pure goal scorer, but he could shoot the puck. That was a great, fearless play driving to the net last night. I was surprised I know Chychrun pushed him from behind. I was surprised Chick got beat to the outside there because the one thing he's got really good lateral mobility. Shane turned it up a notch there, and he beat Chychrun to the net. There's no question he beat him to the net.
And he's stronger, I find, this year, like just being able to hold off Chychrun. Like I don't think 2-3 years ago Pinto would have had that in him. And you can see like he has maybe a half step quicker, a couple pounds stronger. It just feels like it's all molding into place for Pinto at the perfect time. And we all know he's a restricted free agent about to get paid. But
me the money.
Exactly. But I mean, he's been him and Cozens, just their goal scoring ability without Tkachuk has been really important just to weather the storm, find ways to score. Like the Senators are, in the top 15 in the league in goal scoring. Like who would have thought that without Tkachuk, right? Like I know it's early, but they're finding ways to score, and that's what this team needs.
I think last night was a big step for them. Going into what you correctly said about 10 days ago, they're coming up to a point in the schedule where there are a lot of winnable games. You were right on about that, Alex. But to me, it's like not leaving it behind. So you learn from it and you carry it into the Boston game coming up. Then you go to Chicago. That's a hard back-to-back just because you got to cross the border. Their customs. It's never easy to land in Chicago. O'Hare is pretty far from downtown. Like it's a longer back-to-back than people want to acknowledge. So I hope they just focus one game at a time, not to use cliches. But I like what you just said, because I think it's important. They're learning, they're getting better, and these were very winnable games for them, and they're taking advantage of them. Your theory was spot on. It really was good.
If they can win 2 of the next 3 games against Calgary, Boston, Chicago, or even win all 3, like, they can win all 3. I'm
Those are
not
6
saying
points I think they can win.
yeah, and if let's say they even get 5 out of 6 or 4 out of 6,
4 out of 6 is fine.
you feel like, okay, they've had a slow start to the season. Everything was going wrong. Kachuk was hurt. The PK sucked. They weren't getting saves. It felt like the sky was falling, and they're above 500. And the Atlantic is just a complete mess right now. And it's still super, super early, but they're at game 10 soon. Like, that's over 10% of the season. Like, it's a sizable part of the season has already happened. And if you can be, just right there in a playoff chase, you're fine. You're happy.
Yeah, the 2 teams that are pretty similar right now, and I know people in Ottawa won't like to hear this, and people in Montreal won't want to hear this, but Ottawa and Montreal are kind of showing where they can be as a group. Demidov's been this amazing elixir for Montreal, especially with the Line A injury, who's going to be out for a while on the power play. I know he wasn't playing on the first power play, but you see the coaches recognized it was important to get Demidov on that power play, so they took Bolduc off and put him on, and watch what happened in Vancouver yesterday afternoon in the West, but at night here in the East. And this kid's going to be something special. He I think most people knew it. I didn't think they thought it would happen this fast. It's happening. But you watch the way Montreal is playing. You watch the way Ottawa's playing right now. The coaching is mattering, or it's a matter in a positive way. And the players are responding to the coach. I thought Travis and his group last night, I can't say it enough, Alex, I thought they were really good as a staff last night. Really, really good.
Is that something, like, as you were a coach in the league, like, that you just know, hey, let's put in Curtis McDermott because it's Tom Wilson and Dylan McElrath. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but
You did.
Yeah, but it just, like, I always find that, like, I never played the game at a high level or anything like that, but that almost that sixth sense of, I know where this game is headed, and he did it correctly. Obviously, Greg got crunched, then Clevin crunched Leonard, and then a brawl ensued, and guess who was there? Curtis McDermott.
So you do know that Brian Burke, who I worked for in Hartford, and he hired me there, he called it the nuclear deterrent. Whenever you see the other team's got some nuclear weapons, you bring some nuclear weapons to the party, and it kind of balances everything out. And if somebody decides to lob a bomb, you have somebody that you can bomb back with. Bob Johnson always thought, and I'll never forget him telling me this. We were on the draft floor in Vancouver in 1990. We had taken Jaromir Jagr with the 5th overall pick. And right afterwards, Bob says, Pierre, do you think we have enough artillery to protect some of the stars we have? And I said, well, coach, to be honest, I'm not sure. I've only been working here for 3 days, so I don't know how much artillery we have. And so Bob was a big believer that your best players needed to feel secure when they were going into tough environments. And back then the league obviously was, the Patrick division was, you go to Washington, you go to Philly in the old Spectrum, you go to New York, there was you go to the Islanders who were still relevant. Like there was some artillery in the Patrick division. So we had Troy Loney, we had Phil Bork, we had guys at Jay Caulfield. We had some guys who were pretty nasty and could bring the heat if they had to. So that would give more room for Mario, more room for Mark Recchi. People were afraid of Kevin Stevens back then. They were, because you didn't know what he was going to do. He was so big and strong. And guys were like, should we let him sleep or should we engage him? And more times than not, they thought the letting him sleep factor was going to kick in. And Kevin was not a sleeper. Kevin was a guy that always was super motivated. He just went in the Pittsburgh Penguin Hall of Fame, Alex. Last night, it's an amazing class. Eddie Johnson, Scotty Bowman, Ronnie Francis, Kevin Stevens. Like, that's wow. We talk about a hierarchy of an organization. It's pretty impressive. Kevin went in last night, and we were texting back and forth. I was so proud of him. And I told him, I said, one of the best parts about you was we would have like really intense, hard practices. I don't think people, unless you were covering the team, you would never know how intense our practices were. And Kevin was always the first guy there. He was one of the last guys off. Yager was always the last guy. Trust me, Yager was off. But Kevin's work habits were impeccable. The 2 years that I was there when we won cut, his work habits were unbelievable. And you tell that to people today, they say, no way. Yes way. I'm just telling you. And I told that to Kevin last night, how proud I was of him. But for that in particular, so you have a guy like that who sets the tone. Alfie was like that in Ottawa, by the way.
Yeah.
Alfie was the very same in Ottawa. I'm just telling you, I admire those guys. Yeah. I do. I admire people like that.
Awesome story. I will say, just here in Ottawa, I see Alfie just playing around with the puck all the time. If he had the legs, he could play in the NHL. He is so good at everything, and you just see him playing keep away, and he's just tormenting guys in the NHL, and you're like, this man's almost, I think he's 50. I could be mistaken.
No, I think he's got to be close.
He's in his 50s. Yeah.
So I would say pretty close. Yeah. I'll tell you a guy that could play in the NHL still, even if he doesn't have his legs, is Jaromir Jagr. So I'm fortunate I get to go to Mario Lemieux's fantasy camp, and I run those practices too. And Mario says, it's fantasy camp. Show them what it's like to be in the NHL. So we run these hard practices for the players. And they get 80 people from all over the world. It's an amazing experience. It's always in March. It's phenomenal. Yarmer comes from time to time, and really? Plays on one of the teams. And I remember, I think it was Grant Fuhr. Grant was working with me on one of the practices, and he goes, Pete, he could still play. I'm like, yeah, he could. He could.
He still is. Is he still playing in Czechia? Isn't he still playing?
He is. He owns the team. He's the owner, the president. I don't think he's a GM. He's kind of like the playing coach and the player for Kladno, the team that he grew up with. And it's an amazing story. Yarmer is addicted to hockey. Yeah, he's an amazing man. Spent a lot of private time with him over the years. And the thing that a lot like Kevin, he just had this amazing desires, and Alfie too, amazing desire to be great. Like he really wanted to be great.
That's the one thing being around the Sens all the time is like, sometimes you can relate to them about just like loving the game and being around the rink, but then sometimes you're like, there's these moments where I wouldn't just want to block shots and be in pain all the time. Like I was talking to Nick Jensen a couple of days ago. I was just like, so like, how do you about the PK? And I said, oh, like in other places I used to block shots more. I'm like, oh, how do you is there what's the art to it? He's like, I don't know. Like, I just get used to it. And I'm like, I would have the fear of God if I had to try to go up in front of a vulcanized rubber puck and just it hit me in every which place in my body. Like, I don't know. They're just different sometimes, which is
but you're right. Funny. You're right about that. Think about how much harder everybody can shoot the puck now because of the new equipment. Well, that takes a lot of courage because they haven't really changed the protective equipment. It takes a lot of courage to get in front of those pucks, and people don't realize how many marks they leave.
I remember talking to JBD, Jacob Bernard Doctor last year, and I said to him, I'm like, people say hockey players are always banged up, and I believe it. I didn't say, it's not true, but I was like, is that true? He's like, yeah. If anyone on this team said they weren't hurting in a bunch of different places, not oh, they can't play, but just banged up beyond belief, he's like, yeah, they'd be lying to you. I'm like, okay, good to know. That's interesting.
And I can tell the story now. When we won the Cup in '92 in Chicago, we had a grinding first two rounds. We had to come from behind. We were down 3-1 in the Washington series in the first round. We had to win game 5 and 7 on the road. And the next round, we were down to the Rangers 2-1, and they had a lead. And then Ronnie Francis scored from center ice, believe it or not. And we won a game against the Rangers and got us back in it. But Mario had a broken hand. Adam Grace had slashed him. And one of our bigger injuries, and nobody knew at the time, we knew as a staff, was Kjell Samuelsson had a broken hand. He never missed a game. Nobody knew, not even our players knew. I'm not kidding you. And I got to the point, I don't know if I was a good luck charm for him or he just felt comfortable because I was coaching the defense. But before every game, he was taking a needle. And I'm not making this up. So you look at this. The needle went from here, from there. Let me see if from there to there. right through here. And
Fire.
I would be there, like he would grab my shoulder, my arm, like I can only imagine the pain that he was going through. But yeah, he did that almost every day. It was unbelievable to watch.
I always remember the Patrice Bergeron, was it 2013 where he played through a punctured lung?
Punctured lung, yes.
How like I don't know. I love a bunch of other sports. I love soccer, I love basketball, and then it's like they're flailing around on like in soccer because they got, slightly hit from behind, or basketball, they flop, and then the guys play with a punctured lung. Like the sports don't equate sometimes, and
No.
it's awesome. And that's what I love about hockey.
You're right, though. The biggest thing about hockey players is they know the difference between pain and injury. A lot of them do. But I'll give you one more. I had just started in the media. Red Fisher, the legendary Red Fisher, the writer, Hockey Hall of Fame writer, just an amazing, amazing hockey savant. Red comes up to me. We're at the airport. We always flew commercial back then. Montreal always flew commercial. And Red comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I want to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Your buddy's sick." I go, "Who, Scotty?" He goes, "No, Mark Recchi." I said, He's playing really well. What are you talking about? He's really sick." "I have it on good authority that he's playing with double pneumonia. You better talk to him. That's bad." So I saw Rex. I forget what town. It might have been Chicago. I forget where we were, but we were somewhere. And I go to Mark and go, "Hey, for what it's worth," because he's playing for Montreal. And I said, "I heard you're really sick. You got pneumonia." He goes, "I don't have pneumonia. I got double pneumonia." I go, "What are you doing?" And he said, I really want to try to be in the Olympic team. I'll try to be in the Olympic team.
Wow.
It was unbelievable, like what he did. And he wanted to help the team win. And they made the playoffs that year. And Alain Vigneault's first year. And a lot of people did not think the Montreal Canadiens were making the playoffs that year. But Recchi was a big part of it. And he was playing with double pneumonia. I had no idea. And I hung with him all the time. I had no clue. He never said a word.
It's funny. This just makes me think of last year when people were ahead of the playoffs. People were like, "Oh, like Brady Tkachuk, like his numbers were 55 points in 70 games." I'm like, you realize like he played, I don't know what the injury was, but he played through a hip injury that he would have, like, he was on one hip, or I don't even know. I mean, it's one hip anyways, but you get what I mean. And then in the playoffs, he was outstanding, and he was clearly laboring, right? Like he was not his best self. And he was still an absolute monster at the Four Nations, in the playoffs, and just a marvel.
Look at his brother. Look at his brother. Everybody was kind of down on his brother last year. The fact that his brother could even play in the games was unbelievable. Now his brother's not coming back till January 1st, and people are like, "Why not?" Well, because a guy shouldn't have been playing last spring. That's why.
Exactly. No, it's amazing. Yeah. LTRR, I'm glad you are going to the moon, though. I don't want, I don't miss that at all. Very unfair advantage. Pierre, before I let you go, is there just anything kind of that you want to put forward just about this game tonight, or last night, sorry, and maybe moving on to Monday when they play Boston?
I'm just really excited about the vibe between the players and the coaches, and I love how the coaches are managing their roster right now and the lineup from day to day. There's subtle changes in game. There's subtle changes post game, pre game. I think it's really smart. I really like that. And when you do that and you have success, your players believe in everything you say. And if you do all these things and it doesn't work, the player's like, "Oh, not another one." But when it works, and it is working right now, especially without Brady, they've got to be creative as a coaching staff. I think they are. And I think that's made a pretty substantial difference so far.
I always give Travis Green credit for, at least on his lines, like forward lines, he'll always mix and match. I always like that. I always think, like, especially in the regular season, try things. It might not work. Nick Cozens on the first line might not have worked, but guess what? It did.
Yeah.
Right. And you would have never known if that, even if it's for 2-3 games, it would have worked, and it did. Right. So a lot of credit, a lot of people were dumping on Travis Green a week ago, and now they're not. So it's been a quick turn of events, but that's hockey. And as you said, I think they're going to grab some momentum from this game. And hopefully, again, they have a good week this week. I feel really good about this team moving forward, considering without their captain, and they're playing pretty good hockey. That last night felt like the old Senators and the team that can really compete in the Eastern Conference. So it's a fun win. It's always fun to win 7-1. So Pierre,
agreed.
thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. Looking forward to doing this sometime next week, or this week, I guess. It'll be a bit different. But
I'll be in Ireland speaking at the International Ice Hockey Federation Congress with all their pro teams over there. So I'll be in Belfast, Ireland, but I'll still be watching the games, and we'll have no problem doing each hit. So that's not an issue.
This man grinds. Don't anyone say anything otherwise. This Pierre McGuire never stops working, and we love him for it. So thanks so much for doing this, and can't wait. Enjoy Belfast. I've never been.
Thanks so much, Alex. I appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you this week.
Awesome.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.